Hey guys, thank you so much and welcome to the Game Your Future podcast. And today I am happy to present our special guest today. So Christoph, and how would we pronounce your last name? Nair?
Nauer.
Nauer. Christoph Nauer. And Christoph is a business and time management coach and certified by Brian Tracy, for those that know, a master in the time management space. So Christoph, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Daniel.
Great. And so tell us a little bit about the business and time management coaching, and especially the Brian Tracy. I think especially for those that may not know in the audience, I guess what all is the Brian Tracy method, and how do you fit into this?
Yeah, the minute when I started my coaching practice, I think, gosh, 15 years ago. So, um, of course, you learn from masters, So when you get certified, that means you know nothing afterwards. You got a little degree in your palm. That's it. And so the gurus in the industry were Brian Tracy, and he still is. John Assaraf, I'm sure you have heard of him, and others like Christian Michelson. And so I started following these guys. And as I followed them along, they offered so much insight and new ways of expanding my knowledge that I decided to sign up for one of his programs, which was the Time Management Mastery Program. And so he's got so many different programs out there. I mean, he's a guru in the self-development industry, especially in the business coaching and industry as well. So that's how I got to know him. He talks about different ways of prioritizing and so forth. We can get into that if that's of interest to the audience.
Absolutely. Because when we talk about time management, I know, for myself and a lot of gamers, time management is just kind of this, I don't know if it's a bad word or if it's just, it just doesn't seem, it's not sexy. It's not interesting. It's just, it's this work thing, right? I don't really care because as a gamer, I just want to have fun. I just want more free time. And I think there's this misconception, and so I'd like to understand from your perspective, when we're talking about time management, it's not trying to get more work done, even though it helps with that. It's also about trying to balance and have that additional time for yourself. And I guess, what are your
Yes,
thoughts on that?
absolutely correct. You put it perfectly. The thing is, um, when people get into business for themselves, that's usually for two reasons. One, they want to be their own boss. Two, they are really passionate about something. They're really good at whatever it is. Let's say a construction person. They can build anything. They're fantastic. So they want to be their own boss and build. All of a sudden they realize, oh, how does this work? Running this as a business versus a hobby. Oh, and they end up working more than they ever did when they were in the corporate world. And that's not the purpose. So the family suffers, their health suffers, the whole nine yards, and that defeats the purpose. So it's all about setting aside time for the important tasks, prioritizing. And let's see, for people who enjoy gaming, and whether that's a hobby or a profession, I don't know, but I assume, let's say it's a hobby. Well, then set aside time. Okay, this is reserved for me to game. Okay, and that is the time. Nobody has a right to interfere with me because this is my time. And most people, if they even put something on their schedule for themselves, which most people don't, they blow it off. Something else comes up and they feel like it's more important. But self-care is more important than anything else. Our country spends billions of dollars helping people regain their health. How about if we not lose our health to begin with? And that goes into this whole idea. So you set aside
Yep.
time for your gym, time for exercise, time for the whole nine yards. And so that's really a key component of it all. I hope that
Gotcha.
makes sense.
Absolutely. One, I guess, yeah, I guess call it a hiccup that comes up, or point of hesitation, when you say like having this kind of structured time, yeah, kind of have this. I guess the issue I think that gamers, and I'll say myself, I've had before, is that when you try to structure the time, it doesn't seem as fun. Like, how can I structure my fun time? That seems like a contradiction, I guess, is the point. I guess, how would you help people understand, I guess, the reason or why we want to structure our time this way because maybe people are saying like I'm a free spirit. I just my time is whatever it wants to be. Like what is I guess where's the benefit of the structuring, even especially around free time?
Well, I think it has to do with I can only speak for my my clientele, so they're so busy running their business. When I ask them, what are your office hours? They don't really have office hours. What are you doing for yourself? Oh, they work through lunch, and not a good idea. And so when we talk about this whole idea of prioritizing, what are the top tasks that you have to accomplish? Yes, they know what they have to do to run their business, but usually self-care is not part of the plan. It's an afterthought. Well, if I have time, I'll go for a run. If I have time, I go to the gym. If I have time, I go swim. Or if I have time, I sit at the computer and game. Now, that is not, so I'm not saying you have to decide um, what kind of games you play, whatever, but you set aside time for what is important to you, what brings joy to you, what rejuvenates you. And that's different for every person. For your audience, it's gaming, I think, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
So that means you set time aside for that. So when 6 o'clock rolls around, I'm done working. My business is over. Hey, tomorrow's the next day. Now from 6 to whatever, 6 to 7, it's gaming time. And then I'm going to go grab something to eat, whatever. So that's what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. And then, so let's also talk about like kind of the other side of it to say, when you put too much time into something, right? So something that is a fun activity like gaming. And so, so we're talking like those kind of hobbies and pastimes where maybe on the business side of it, you're like, you need to make sure you're taking that self-care. Awesome. What about when you get to the other side of it? Those kind of extremes. Do you have, clients like that spend too much time not in action and just, kind of floundering in their business because they have, they're using too much free time, right? Playing in their whether it's games or other hobbies. I guess what's kind of the strategy there for those people that don't spend enough time doing what they should be doing and spend too much time in our audience playing games.
Well, most of my clients don't fall into that category. So they work too much. They may be working on the wrong thing, and so that's what that we look at it. Everybody understands when you say budget, people think money, right? Well, I talk about a time budget. So let's look at how you spend your most precious commodity, which is time. Is it the best ROI? So if you do, let's say in a business setting, if you do your own books, but you're not a bookkeeper, was that a good use of your time? No. Or if you're not a social media expert to run your own social media campaign, is that a good use of your time? No. So you delegate that stuff. So that's a lot of stuff that I work with my clients. What you talk about is probably, and please correct me if I didn't get that right, but it's almost like an addiction. Gaming can become an addiction where the gaming is driving you versus you driving the gaming. It's like our electronic gadgets that we have today are fantastic because they can really make our life easier. But if the electronic gadgets is dominating us and controlling us versus us controlling the electronic devices, then we get into trouble.
Yeah, and so that is one aspect. I know there's definitely people that have gaming addiction, and I think part of it too, at least in my opinion, is not necessarily gaming addiction. Even it's the lack of clarity around what they want to or should be doing. Right, having like you said, having this structure, I guess, makes it more clear, and that's what I was very interested in to say. Like, um, I guess So I'll ask you this question as far as what happens when you have like your clients that they're running the business but they have so much to do, right? And it's just like how do I get it all done, right? To the point of overwhelm. And then so how do you structure it when it's kind of it's overfilling the sides, right? It's like, well, I don't have enough time today in the day to structure all of this. Because I think for gamers it's I have so many things I can do and it's just so overwhelming that they just push it to the side and then they go play games instead. So
Hmm.
how do we get the yeah, how do we deal with that overwhelm when I have too much to do and therefore I do nothing?
Okay. Well, first of all, you said a key word, clarity. Okay. That is absolutely essential. If you don't know where you want to go, you don't know whether you're going to get there. Okay. So the whole clarity and goal setting, that's a whole other story. We could do an entire podcast just on that. Okay. But this is a really critical word. So thank you for bringing that up. Then what I talk to my clients about is a five-step process that really gets the stuff done. First is the famous to-do list. Everybody's heard of that. That is not in your head. It's either on paper or on a computer document. Once you've done that, the next step is now you have to prioritize because we always put too much stuff on it. Brian Tracy talks about a very simple method, A, B, C, D, E. I start at the end. E stands for eliminate. So what is it that you put on that list that really doesn't need to be there right now? Maybe in a week or a month or whatever. D is a critical component for most of my clients. You can imagine what it stands for. It stands for delegate. That's all the stuff that you put on your to-do list. Yes, as a business owner, you're responsible. It happens, but you should not do everything. So who can do it? Do you have employees can do that? Can you outsource it to an expert, 1099? Contract with a social media expert, with a person, with a bookkeeper, CPA, the whole nine yards. Okay. And then your list should be way shorter once you've done that E and the D. Now you jump to the top to A. A tasks are the ones that have, if you don't do them, they have significant negative consequences on your business, your finances, or your health, and relationships. Okay, so that's the part where Brian Tracy doesn't go into the health and relationship part, and I do the whole self-care thing. I make that a number top priority. B tasks are, secondary. They're not as important as A and C. They don't really matter. I think he used A, B, C, D, E because it was a nice way to do that. And also it includes the eliminate and the delegate.
Gotcha.
Once you've done that, then you can look at those tasks and say, okay, how much time will it take me to do this A task one? Oh, and then sometimes these tasks are so overwhelming that we blow it off. So you've heard this saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So you chunk it down. So I'm going to work an hour a day on this particular task, and then it'll get it done. Okay, so assigning a time, then you put the stuff on your schedule. What doesn't get scheduled doesn't get done. Perfect example of that myself. And then last but not least, you got to follow your schedule. So many people actually create a schedule, but then blow it off. So when you work on the particular item on your to-do list, that is an A task, and the phone rings, you don't answer the phone, or an email pops up, you don't jump to the email. That means when you work on something like that, you turn your phone on airplane mode. Isn't that fantastic? You know, you,
Gotcha.
you exit out of email. Um, and so, there's a golden nugget that Brian Tracy teaches. He calls it simply the 90-15-90. For 90 minutes, you work on something on one of your eight tasks uninterrupted. Nothing else on your desk, just that. And you take a 15-minute break and then do it again for 90 minutes. If you do that, just let's say once a week, your productivity skyrockets because so many times people get interrupted and they allow for interruptions. And if you have to stop and go, it can take up to 7 times longer to complete a task than if you do it without any interruptions. You know.
Wow. That's I've heard a similar I guess study or something on that. Something about where if you get interrupted, it takes like 11 minutes, I think, to get back into the flow of what you were doing. And then if you get interrupted, it's another 11 minutes to get back to that same level. So
Yeah,
completely understand. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy, but people do it. And see, just these kind of golden nuggets. If you start implementing just that, it's a game changer. But it requires discipline, and nobody likes that word. People hate that word, but I'm sorry. It's a certain self-discipline to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
And I guess what sort of tips would you have, for those people that, don't stay committed to their schedule, right? It's like, okay, I did all this work and I prioritize things and I have my schedule. How do I stick to it? How do I ensure that I am, yeah, I guess, committed to my schedule? Like what would you say? And like, I guess, how would you treat that?
well, first is becoming aware of when you blow off your schedule. You know, well, sometimes it's almost an autopilot. Oh yeah, I should. Oh yeah, I don't want to. But once you become aware of why is it that you say I don't want to, is it one of those um, tasks that are just you don't like, whatever it is, then you might be able to do something about it. There's another one, a great book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog. And I always tell folks it has nothing to do with a culinary dish, okay?
Yeah.
It, you probably know what it's about. It's what we all do. We procrastinate on the big, challenging tasks because we just don't like them. Now, that doesn't mean that that task goes away. It actually is the exact opposite. It grows. It's constantly in the back of our mind, and it interferes with our productivity because our mind, we know, oh, I still need to do this. I still need to do this. Instead of doing it, we do what's easier. It's the human nature. It's human. That's perfectly human. But once we can change that, and the people who have experienced that, I can tell you, it's a game changer. When you do this, you feel like $1 million afterwards. You feel like, wow, I got it done. And then you're just so energized and ready to tackle the next thing, versus putting it off. It really is a game changer. But again, it goes back to the same thing. Okay, why am I not doing it? Yeah, I don't like it. Okay, fine. You don't like everything in life. That's life. Get over it.
Yeah.
you know. But these are just some key tips that I'd like to share with the audience that if you can address them and overcome them, they're game changers.
And do you have, I guess, if you can talk to any examples, whether your clients or yourself, where, before doing these kind of methods, that you had examples where yourself or a client kind of waited too long, and then the problem did become super overwhelming and big, and then they had to deal with it, versus how they could have handled it or how somebody handled it when it was small and just ate the frog when it was smaller and not as bad, right? To save that amount of time.
There's a couple examples come to mind. One is the whole thing with when you have to, you have to hire, and that's time consuming. The whole hiring process time consuming. And even once you find the right person, then they have to train them. I don't have time to hire. I don't have time to train. Well, it's a whole chicken and egg thing, right? So that means you're going to continue to be overwhelmed and work 12-hour weeks and I mean days, and you're just exhausted and frustrated. And eventually, as you get older, your health is going to suffer. Or this proactive versus reactive.
Mm.
I work a lot with clients like in the insurance industry, so they deal with renewals. So the current insurance industry is going through some really tough times and upheavals. So being proactive is look out to 2 to 3 months out. What renewals are coming up? And then start working on them way ahead of time versus getting a notice and say, oh, one of your clients is not getting renewed and you have 3 days or a week left to deal with it. Then all of a sudden you're scrambling,
Yeah.
you
And I
know.
think that's the challenge that a lot of people like myself that did a lot of procrastination where it does get to the scramble point, and it's so counterintuitive, I guess it seems like, well, it's not a problem now. I'll wait and do it later, but then it becomes so much bigger, and we just for some reason don't see it until it's there. And then if we had handled it ahead of time, then it would have been so much easier. And I
Right.
think that's why, you know, well, I don't know why it's so counterintuitive to us, but yeah, like you said, I think it is. It's just because it's easier, right? Because
Hmm.
I don't want to deal with it now until it becomes a big enough problem that you have to deal with it.
Yes.
And then suddenly the problem is 10 times bigger. And I think for those that enjoy their free time, like the gamers like myself, if you do it ahead of time, I think what you're saying is if you handle it when it is small, you'll actually have more time for the free time for the gaming later.
Right. Well, and there's also psychology involved. You feel great when you get something done. You know, I mean, you look back at your own life. When you got something big done. You feel, oh, wow, awesome. This was great. Your body may ache or whatever. You did a great workout, or went for a run, or whatever you did, or you had to put together. Let's say the cabinet behind you. It came in pieces. You had to put it together. Do you enjoy that? Probably not. But when it was all done, we're like, oh, cool. It looks great. I did it. Yeah. You know, and that's what I'm talking about. It's that feeling that you have when you do something, especially when it's something that's not easy. It's something that's a little bit challenging or something that you don't even like. But the way you feel once you do it is so invigorating, you know, and it gives you energy.
For sure. Yeah, just the sense of accomplishment, the sense of, completeness. And I think that's one of the things that we actually learn from video games, yes, myself especially, is that this sense of achievement, right? Like there's literally in games called achievements or
Hmm.
like achievement points, right? Where the game has this arbitrary score that it awards you based on the things that you did in the game. And as
Hmm.
game, we feel really good when we do that. So that's one of the things I think absolutely we can bring out of the games to say, yeah, like you're saying, we can achieve things in the real world and we get that same sense of feeling of completing the goal, achieving something.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think we can absolutely use that. And that's fantastic that you brought that
Right,
up. I love that.
right, right. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I did have, I guess, another, just so one kind of looming question to me. So what is kind of an overarching question I have? So like, what is some of these common, or like, what's the biggest common misconception about time management that you've seen for your clients and for, I guess, the society at large? What's the biggest misconception about time management?
Well, first of all, it's never taught.
Mm.
You know, it's never taught. We teach all kinds of classes in high school and college, but this is not one of them. Just like budgeting is not taught. So we could use something, along those lines to prepare those young people for the real world. The whole idea of planning, time blockings, just planning so that you don't take life as become a firefighter, basically. A
Yeah.
lot of business owners, they get up in the morning, start putting out fires all day long. At the end of the day, they smell like smoke. No, I mean, they're exhausted and feel frustrated because they didn't really get much done. The proactive versus reactive, that whole idea. And the same thing, oh, I don't have time for planning. Well, 1 minute of planning can save you up to 10 minutes in execution, so I don't have time. That's when people say that, yes, you do. It's just how are you using what you have been given? You're given 24 hours a day, everybody. Nobody gets more. It's the one thing that's totally equal across the board.
Yep.
Nothing else is, but time is. And it's up to you how to use it, you know? So wouldn't you use it as wisely as possible? So one of my coaches that I learned from, he said, just imagine you're getting $30,000 put into your bank account every month. At the end of the month, whatever is left in the account gets taken out.
Mm.
What would you do? Would everybody, oh, I would use it, I would spend it. There you go. Every day you're getting 24 hours a day. When the 24 hours are over, they're gone.
That's a great analogy. I love that. So you get the money, but then we take it out at the end of the month. So you're going to spend it. So why aren't you spending your time the same way? So that's
Yeah.
wow.
Well, and spend it wisely, on the
And spend
things
it
that
wisely.
matter,
Yeah.
because you can't get it back.
Yeah.
And so it's all the whole idea is really of being proactive versus reactive. And make sure that you set aside time for the stuff that you enjoy. Your life is too short for that. You know, I don't think I've ever met anybody who on a deathbed saying, I wish I had worked more.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would say that. Yeah.
You, you know, what are most regrets? Oh, I wish I'd spent more time with my kids or with my loved ones or or doing my hobbies or here playing games. I don't know,
Exactly.
but it's definitely not. I wish I had worked more.
Right. So wouldn't it be nice if we worked smarter and then played games harder?
Yeah,
That's one
that's
way to think about it.
yeah.
So this is fantastic. So gosh, Christoph, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. And so before we go, is there anywhere that people can find you and find out more about, I guess, what you do in your time management as far as website, socials, your book? How can we find you?
Everything is on my website, balance6.biz or balance6.com. Either way, it goes.
Balance6.com. And
Yeah,
that's six, just the number six, right?
correct. Yes.
Okay.
And everything is there. There's a link to my YouTube channel where I have a whole bunch of podcasts, and so forth. There's a page with blog posts that has a wealth of information. And if anybody ever wants to talk to me, they can also. There's a link to get my book. They can also book an appointment with me. It's all there on my website.
Awesome. So yeah, so guys, if you want to learn more about time management so you can have more time to play the games you love, definitely check out Christoph, balance6.com. Guys, Christoph, thank you so much. And so I know you said you haven't really played games or haven't played games in a long time, but if you could think of a game, what would be your favorite game?
It's probably one that you don't know. See, I'm Swiss, and
Okay.
it's a card game called Yas. It's spelled
Yes.
Jass. And I grew up playing that game with my mom loved it, my grandma loved it, and I played it with my buddies and friends, and I played that for long. And I have actually the app. There's actually an app, and I have it on my phone. So
There you
that's
go.
one. I enjoy playing chess on my phone and solitaire and backgammon. That's about it. But
Perfect.
we have adopted grandkids, and they're into gaming, and they playing games. I have no clue how they do it. They try to explain it to me. You just push this button, and this button, and this button, then you go there. I'm like, okay, you just lost me. But that it's all
Yeah.
second nature to you, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. They've gotten more complicated over the years. I've grown up with it, so it's fine to me. But yeah, I know coming into it fresh, it could be
Yeah. Well,
overwhelming. I've heard.
yeah. My kids, especially my middle son, he's flying over that. He has a whole console set up and a huge screen, and that's how he unwinds at the end of the day. I have to, he sits there and plays, and his fingers fly over those controllers. I mean, I'm like, whoa.
Yep. Oh, it's fun. It's fantastic. So gosh. Well, thank you so much again, Christoph, for joining us. And
Sure.
guys, make sure to check out balance6.com so you can learn more about time management so you can have more time for games. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.